Spencer Callahan is the one to see. Call 387-2323.
LA 21-12670. Offices in Baton Rouge.
WNXX, Jackson, KNXX, Donaldsonville, and WDGL HD2 Baton Rouge. This hour brought to you by Spencer Callahan Injury Lawyers. LA 21-12681. Offices in Baton Rouge.
Hanny time. Hanny time. A daily look at sports from our resident historian. Your sports break during your lunch break. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studios. Here's Charles Sandegriff.
And good morning to you. Welcome to Hanny Time 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Charles Sandegriff, along with Egon Spangler. Oh, wait, no, it's Mario Jerez. But he's changed since the beginning. You didn't have to get out of the Ghostbusters costume if you wanted to do that all day.
I should have kept it on. Oh, well.
Taylor Sharps came dressed as a video producer today. I came dressed as a talk show host. So, hey, listen, happy Halloween if you're enjoying the holiday. We've had some interesting costumes here over the years. Participation's a little bit down, but still pretty good. So enjoy the day. You know, this football season is kind of like this is where we're getting to the really good part of the movie. You know, this is, hey, wait, I was interested before. You know, the plot kind of, you know, brought me in, but now I'm really invested. I gotta see how this turns out. Not that there was any danger that we're gonna walk out. Brian Kelly press conference coming up at 11:40, and then we'll be back to finish out the show. Lead you into Hunting Hill. It's a big game for LSU this week. There's going to be plenty of stuff to talk about. We just posted the podcast, the Hannycast. Gordy did some film work on Alabama, so that's posted right now. 1045ESPN.com, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. You can get the Hannycast right now. So it's a good primer into LSU Alabama before we get started real good this week. Also, a few things on Auburn. Apparently, is getting ready to hire themselves an athletic director. We had some thoughts on that. But we start today with the New Orleans Saints and their 24-0 win over Las Vegas. Watching this game yesterday, as it was getting to the latter parts of the third quarter and into the fourth quarter, you know, you start to think, wait, have I seen Wait, no, they haven't been on that side of the 50. And see, I have the unique experience, guys, of having been in the Superdome before when a team lost by 21 to 24 points and didn't cross midfield until very, very late in the game. This game was more enjoyable than that game. But that's what I thought about when they finally got across midfield with 2 minutes to go or whatever it was. I'm like, yeah. Because, yes, I stayed until the very end to see if LSU was going to cross midfield in 2012. Enough about that. What did the Saints do yesterday to come up with one of the most complete performances of the year in the NFL? I say that because the 183 net yards that the Raiders had yesterday is the lowest total in the NFL. Now, we're not talking about an insignificant team. We're not talking about a team without weapons. Derek Carr is a good quarterback. I would say Derek Carr is a top 10 to 12 quarterback in the league. We're not talking about a rookie, one of those guys in the sophomore class right now. They're all pretty much struggling. Not an insignificant quarterback at all. Josh Jacobs, one of the better backs when he's going good. And Devontae Adams, who I think played in the game yesterday. Oh, wait. Yeah, there he is. One catch for 3 yards. And Marshawn Lattimore didn't play, okay? So you're talking about a top 12 quarterback, a top 6, 8, 10 running back in the league, and a top 3 or 4 receiver for sure. And the Saints shut him out, and the Saints shut him down. What was the difference yesterday? Well, this is the first time really all year the Saints have not gone out there and done a very good job of helping the opponent. They didn't beat themselves yesterday. The defense, this is going to sound terrible, but I can back it up with a number. The defense wasn't playing quite as bad as it seemed, even with all the points they'd given up. Why do I say that? Well, the Saints, when you look today, have given up the 10th most yards in the league. Okay, last week that number was 14, the 14th most yards in the league. 14 puts you right about in the middle. So you had a defense that, for yards given up, was right about in the center, and now is in the top third. But they were second to last in points given up. Why was that? Well, I can't do my wind horse. Why is that? Well, the turnovers were killing them. I mean, they were getting field positioned to death. Not that this defense was playing as well as they did the last couple years, but they weren't playing as the second worst defense in the league. The offense had put them in so many bad positions, field position-wise, that there were more points given up. Now, the Saints defense is not totally blameless in this thing because they weren't causing any turnovers either. They were down at the bottom of the league. They were last in turnover margin, and even after yesterday, they're still last in turnover margin. Give me one stat the whole year. Beginning of the year, you can win one stat. I want to win turnover margin more than anything else, more than rushing yards, more than rush defense. I want to win turnovers, and they weren't. Not only were they not winning, they were last. So the Saints defense had a fighting chance yesterday. That and Alontae Taylor looks like he's going to be a pretty good football player. You hold Devontae Adams to one catch for 3 yards, and you have had yourself an afternoon. Take a bow, Saints secondary. So that was the thing. They did not put the defense in a lot of these impossible positions, which is what they've been doing all year. And they helped out. They got one turnover on that side. The other thing is penalties. The Saints were near the bottom of the league in penalties going in, and they still are. They're ahead of only the Broncos and the Seahawks in number of penalties that have gone against them this year. But yesterday they had 5 for 27 yards. It's easy to say, but if you just don't beat yourself in the National Football League, if you've got a reasonable amount of talent, you give yourself a chance. I know that the headline is Alvin Kamara. I understand why, because when you score 3 touchdowns and you're up over 150 yards, say, well, they finally got the ball to Alvin Kamara, and that's why they won. That's not really the only reason that they won. I'm not even sure it's the number one reason that they won. Yeah, you can get the ball to Alvin Kamara, and that's always a good idea. Guy's a great football player. But the Saints have done that before. He had 27 touches yesterday. He had 25 against Cincinnati. They lost. At 29 against Seattle, they won that game, but they had to get into a shootout for it. Now, against Arizona, he only had 18, but that game kind of got away from him a little bit. My point is that they have gotten the ball to Alvin Kamara before and still not had it come out the way they wanted to. So that's a part of it. It's a big part of it, but it's only part of it. And it's not that different than what they had done in some of these previous games that they had lost. The turnovers, that's a big difference. The penalties, that's a big difference. It allowed the defense to do their job. It allowed Andy Dalton to do his job. He wasn't touched yesterday. He didn't get hit. When you think about putting an entire game together where your offense does not allow offensive line does not allow the quarterback to get hit, and your defense allows the fewest yards in a game all year, you have come dangerously close to playing a perfect football game in the NFL. I mean, this is about as close as it gets. And they missed a field goal, but, who cares? They got Taysom Hill involved in the run game. Maybe that was due to the fact that Mark Ingram went out early. Maybe that was part of the plan anyway. But you went out there with a few of your best football players, and you completely demolish the Raiders. This doesn't fix everything. This doesn't make the first half of the season an overall success at 3-5, roughly the first half of the season. But it gives you an idea of what they can do when they're operating at an efficient level, just as far as not beating themselves. The Saints didn't beat themselves yesterday, and they did a fantastic job of controlling every portion of this game. I mean, they had the Raiders dead to rights from pretty much the opening drive. It was fantastic. It was fantastic to see. Also, crazy as it seems, the NFC South, the Saints are in the worst division in football. Brady and the Bucs had already lost on Thursday night. The Panthers are so bad that they missed an extra point that would have won it yesterday. I mean, I actually, for half a second, I felt sorry for the Panthers. I felt sorry for P.J. Walker. And then I remembered that it was the Falcons that were beating them, and I was like, man, I ain't feeling sorry for those guys anymore. Congratulations to our friend Todd McClure, though. He went in the Falcons Ring of Honor yesterday. So I guess if our friend got a chance to enjoy the win, whatever. But my point is that even with this at times dysfunctional unit over the first 8 games of the season, the Saints are every bit in the thick of the NFC South race. What does that mean? Could they get into the playoffs and make a run? Probably not, okay? The team's still somewhat flawed, but this gives you an idea that when they're at their best, they can be really good. Even Peyton Turner showed up yesterday. I'm not even sure that guy was still on the team. Where you been? Where you been all my life? that was pretty good. The whole thing, like I said, it was as close to. In the NFL, you're never going to go 1-60 and everything's going to be perfect, but that was pretty doggone close yesterday for the New Orleans Saints. So a good start for New Orleans yesterday, a good finish for New Orleans yesterday, as good a game as they can play. Lots of stuff went on in the NFL and in college football this weekend. We're going to get to more of that in the next segment, but this is a great weekend for college football. Some of the games we got coming up this week. I'm kind of jonesing, man, and it's already Monday. I'm still off the high from this past weekend with the amount of football we got to watch and some of the great stuff that we got to see, and finish it off with the Saints victory. Get to watch Joe Burrow tonight, and I'm like, man, what 160 whatever's hours to kick off this weekend. Going to be a really, really fun week. We'll take a break. Come back. This is Hanny Time, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is Hanny Time.
And I'm going to continue to buy my vehicles from Acura and Infinity of Baton Rouge, the same way we've done the last 3 times we've gone to purchase a vehicle. The certified pre-owned packages have so many benefits to them, including the 6-year unlimited mileage warranty, the 167-point inspection. You know you're getting a quality vehicle. Free 3-month trial subscription to Sirius XM satellite radio, emergency roadside assistance, and I'm going to be real honest, had to use this last week. Had a little bit of a problem with the vehicle, the emergency roadside assistance, and then the complimentary service courtesy vehicle is one of my favorite parts of the program, because when you have to take your vehicle in for maintenance, you don't have to arrange for transportation or sit around and wait for it. Transparency and pricing, and let them treat you like family, as they've done for me and my family at Acura and Infinity of Baton Rouge.
Our listeners fire off their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
At Auctioner, we know healing is a team sport. That's why we've partnered with world-renowned orthopedic surgeon Dr. James Andrews to create the Auctioner Andrews Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Institute. Whether you're a professional athlete or a weekend warrior, our team of specialists are dedicated to getting you back in the game. So whatever your reasons are for reaching your personal best, we've only got one: you. Auctioner Andrews Institute. Long live you.
Follow us on Twitter at 1045ESPN to cast your vote in the Citizens Bank and Trust Poll of the Day. Vote daily inside Off the Bench, Hanny Time, Hunt and Hill. And after further review, Citizens Bank and Trust brings you the Poll of the Day via Twitter at 1045ESPN.
Enter now for a chance to win a catch and cook fishing experience from the Louisiana Charter Boat Association with me, Chef Jay Ducote, winner of Beat Bobby Flay. Register now at gocatch.com. That's GEAUX catch.com.
Follow us on Twitter at 1045ESPN to cast your vote in the Citizens Bank and Trust Poll of the Day. Vote daily inside Off the Bench, Hanny Time, Hunt and Hill. And after further review, Citizens Bank and Trust brings you the Poll of the Day via Twitter at 1045ESPN.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals. But many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Oh, hey, what's up? It's Big D and Bubba, 100.7 The Tiger Morning Show. We'd love for you to join us every weekday, 4 a.m. till 9 a.m.
Yeah, everything you want in a show. Country music. We got laughs. We got celebrity in-studio guests. We just need you.
Join us every weekday morning, 4 a.m. to 9 a.m., right where it all started.
That's right. Louisiana's country station, 100.7 The Tiger.
ServiceMaster Elite create clean, disinfected work environments. As a local business, we take pride in serving the New Orleans and Baton Rouge areas. Our cleaning protocols follow CDC and OSHA standards for healthcare settings, offices, senior living, restaurants, and industrial plants. Contact ServiceMaster Elite to get your operation ready for reopening with germ disinfection cleaning. ServiceMaster Elite, the trusted choice in professional cleaning since 1996.
Monday evening edition of Game Time presented by Bet Rivers. We're live at Rouge Creole in Perkins Row, recapping all of the college and NFL action from the weekend on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is Hanny Time with Charles Hannegriff on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Brian Kelly press conference. We'll see you there at 11:40. Come back following that, see what Coach Kelly's got to say. Again, we did the whole podcast on LSU Alabama this morning, so that has been posted. You want to check that out. The Hannycast. Gordy looked at some film and got some stuff on LSU Alabama. Then we'll see what Brian Kelly's got to say. Fairly healthy LSU team going into this weekend. Admit it. You couldn't have possibly, well, I shouldn't say that. I couldn't have possibly imagined that coming into the first week in November, the SEC West would be on the line the control of the SEC West would be on the line again in the LSU Alabama game. But that's exactly what we're going to have here this weekend. Good a doubleheader as you can probably put out in the league right now with Tennessee, Georgia playing, and then LSU. And Alabama, you're going to have all of the Atlanta implications going in this weekend. What was more impressive over the weekend? Was it Georgia coming out and just stomping Florida into the ground in the first half and then kind of toying with them a little bit in the second half? It was almost like Georgia had Florida in the points. Like, yeah, we'll let you within shouting distance, but not really within shouting distance. Or was it Tennessee? For me, it was Tennessee. This was the ultimate trap game. The ultimate trap game for Tennessee. Yeah, there was a week removed from having beaten Alabama. But trust me when I tell you, if you go 15 years without beating Alabama and you beat Alabama, you talk about that game forever. You talk about it for way more than a week. And now you've got coming up in the following week after the UT Martin layup, the most important game in Tennessee football in the last 15 years, at least in the last 15 years. And you've got an opponent coming in that is troublesome. You've got a quarterback that a lot of people think is going to be a first-round pick, and he probably will be. Although if I were doing the scouting, I would have to ask on Will Levis, two biggest moments of the year for you. Fourth quarter against Ole Miss, you were a turnover machine. And the game against Tennessee, you were a turnover machine. I know that you're tall. I know that you have a strong arm. I know that you're a good athlete. But how come when the game's on the line, you just turn the ball over? I'd have to take a serious look at that before I took Will Levis in the first round. But he's probably going to go in the first round. So you've got this look-ahead spot to Georgia with Alabama, the Alabama afterglow still in the background. And Tennessee went out there and beat Kentucky within an inch of their life. Picked Levis 3 times, held Chris Rodriguez to 64 yards. Hendon Hooker did his normal deal, kind of for 4 more touchdowns, 3 through the air and 1 on the ground. There's nothing that in that game suggested that Kentucky from the very beginning was anywhere close to being in this game. When you can focus like that, it means, to me anyway, it would have been very predictable, I thought, if Tennessee had gone in and won this game 40-30, 38-28, something like that. This was one of the worst. No, I'm sorry. It was the worst pass defense in the Southeastern Conference. They were 14th out of 14. First-round draft pick on the other side at quarterback. He threw for 98 yards. That, to me, was the most impressive game of the weekend, most impressive performance of the weekend. And I say that on a weekend where Ohio State went to Penn State, a ranked team, won the game by 2 touchdowns. Now, it was shaky early, and Penn State had the lead at the half. Hendon Hooker is now the favorite to win the Heisman Trophy over C.J. Stroud, and that was not the way it was the last, month of the season. Stroud has put up awesome raw numbers. It's not his fault they really haven't played anybody. He did his job over the weekend. He was just fine, but Hooker is now the favorite for the Heisman Trophy, as he should be. He can win the Heisman Trophy this weekend. When Joe Burrow went to Tuscaloosa in 2019, it's like, okay, if he has a big game here, he's going to win the Heisman. It will. The rest of the season, they'll play it out, but if he has a big game today, he wins the Heisman. He put himself in position to win the Heisman with the Texas game, kept himself in position to win the Heisman with the Florida game, and won the Heisman in the Alabama game. Well, Hendon Hooker put himself in position to win the Heisman in the Alabama game. He can go and win it at Georgia. That's what's on the line for those teams this weekend. And for Alabama to go and put that performance against Mississippi State, completely ran them out of the stadium. They've got a very, very good idea about how to defend that offense. They're set up. LSU has gained their offensive identity. The quarterback coming into his own here the last few weeks has set the table for everything else that they're doing offensively. They've been able to keep most of the offensive line together for at least a couple of games now. Georgia didn't do anything to make you think that they're not still one of the best teams in the country. So with all of that in mind, both of these lines, big underdogs. Although the buyback on Tennessee's been pretty significant. That one's come back down now to 8.5. It started in double figures. There were a lot of other big performances in college football this week. I would say Kansas State 48-0 against Oklahoma State. Didn't in any way think that Kansas State could shut out Oklahoma State. That was pretty good. TCU does it again. If you were someone who wagered over the weekend and you had West Virginia plus 7.5, you might not have liked that free play at the end very much. TCU had a 4th and 1 with under a minute to go and got an offsides penalty. The guy jumps, so the play continues. TCU Dugan throws it to the end zone, and they score. That was a little bit tough to take if you were on West Virginia. How about Ole Miss? Ole Miss goes to Texas A&M. They get a win. They're 8-1. LSU's win against Ole Miss looks pretty doggone good. But if you this is where Hunt and Hester and really anybody that doesn't like A&M has some ammo, because the Aggies lost the game, right? They're 3-5 overall. They're 1-4 in the Southeastern Conference. But if you listen to Aggie fan today, everything's okay because they found a quarterback. The quarterback, the freshman goes out there and throws for 338 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, but they lost. Doesn't matter. Aggies on the way, man. Finally found a quarterback. This is the new Jameis Winston, Jamarcus Russell, Christian Ponder, E.J. Manuel. Jimbo's got his quarterback now. Everything's going to be fine. A&M next year, I don't even know what anybody's playing for next year, because Texas A&M has found a quarterback. Isn't that pretty much what it looks like? Arkansas got a real nice win against Auburn. The news there is that it appears that John Cohen is going to be the new athletic director at Auburn. They're trying to finalize that deal. The offensive or the AD at Mississippi State. It looks like he's moving over to Auburn. So it reminds me a little bit of when Bob Broadhead was brought in to be the athletic director at LSU. This was 1983, and Jerry Stovall had a great 1982 season for LSU, but the 83 season was not good. They brought Broadhead in, and he told us a number of times, he wrote it in his book, he was brought in primarily to fire Jerry Stovall. You have to understand that Jerry Stovall was one of the most popular LSU athletes ever. He was 20 years removed from being an eyelash away from winning the Heisman Trophy, and probably should have won the Heisman Trophy. But let me give you a modern day. If Joe Burrow were here as a coach in 2039, okay, and somebody had to come in and fire him, it'd got to be pretty unpopular, right? Well, that's what John Cohen is being brought in to fire Brian Harsin, right? But if the transition goes easier, then Cohen will have done his job. This is, in my mind, this is what they brought him in to do. They brought him in to usher Harsin out, but hopefully facilitate another job somewhere. That this could be smooth as a transition, be one of those things. Hey, you know what? Just didn't work out. I'm going to go be the coach at, could be Arizona State, but it could easily be somewhere else. Save Auburn some money, and then bring in Matt Rule. If John Cohen does that, if he in the next month, 5 weeks, can get Brian Harsin out the door at somewhat of a discount and get Matt Rule in to be the next head coach at Auburn, he will have done his job and then some. That's what he is. That's essentially what he's being brought in to do. It was just like Broadhead. Broadhead's job was to move Stovall out and bring in the best coach he could. He brought in Bill Arnsparger. It was a good move for LSU, but you have to understand that Stovall was popular. Harsin's not popular at Auburn, so it's a little bit of an easier transition for them. So some of the things that went on in college football this weekend, but none bigger, in my opinion, than Tennessee has put themselves in position to say, listen, there's no letdown. This is our year. They got this game to prove it. Georgia's been sitting there in the top spot or right there all year. Here's Tennessee's shot. Here's Tennessee's Heisman. Here's Tennessee's shot at a national championship, shot at an SEC championship. Tennessee, Georgia looks so much like LSU, Alabama, and Tuscaloosa in 2019. And LSU went out the very first drive of that game, and you just knew it was different. It's like, this is not going to be Les Miles running into a 9-man box all day. There's Burrow to Chase, touchdown, off to the races. If Tennessee gets the ball and it goes down the field and Hooker hits, Jalen Hyatt for a touchdown and it's 7-0 Tennessee, is on. Lot of similarities. Looking forward to that game this weekend. Is it Friday yet? Is it Saturday yet? It's gonna be a long week, man. I can't wait for some of this football. We'll take a break. TN2 Brian Kelly press conference at 11:40. This is Hanny Time, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is Hanny Time.
Great time was had over at Big Mike's this weekend. I was talking to those guys. The Halloween party went fantastic. This week, another terrific lineup. It's karaoke on Thursday night, the honky tonk on Friday night with live music, and DJ Clarence for the LSU Alabama game coming up this weekend. We're just about the end of the high school regular season, but got another week. So if you want to go in late on Friday night, the restaurant is open late, family friendly, following high school football games. Again, live music on the weekend. And on Sunday, it is happy hour drink prices. Even though the Saints will be on Monday Night Football next week, it's happy hour drink prices all day for the NFL. On Sunday at Big Mike's on Aspen and Denham Springs. Big Mike's, we're kind of a big deal.
In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
This is a house call. This is a follow-up appointment. This is a diabetes checkup. This isn't just more convenient care, it's more advanced care. This is innovating healthcare at Louisiana's #1 hospital, Auctioner.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
It's no secret, the best oysters in Baton Rouge are at Jolie Pearl Oyster Bar. Enjoy mouth-watering South Louisiana flavor and oysters from all over the country. And don't forget our nightly drink specials. Jolie Pearl Oyster Bar, located in downtown Baton Rouge.
Eli's always been into grilling. It took us a while to see it, but the signs were there.
What are you doing, Eli?
I knew grilling was my thing. I have been talking about it throughout my career.
Happy with the results?
I am. Got the new grill from barbecueguys.com. It performed great.
My advice, as I always told my boys,
do more of what you were born to do.
Barbecue Guys, for those who were born to grill.
You want cheese on your burger, Pops?
I'll take a little cheese.
I'm Jay Ducote. I grew up learning how to cook at LSU tailgate parties and right in my own backyard. And I created JD's Louisiana Products to bring that Louisiana flavor to you at home for your backyard cookout. JD's Louisiana Barbecue Sauce, Louisiana Molasses Mustard, Spicy and Sweet Barbecue Rub, and more are available at your local supermarkets or by logging on to jducote.com/shop. Put in promo code CST for 25% off at checkout.
There's nothing better than tailgating, but it can be a lot of work. So why do it yourself when you don't have to? Let Rivalry Sports and Entertainment set up your luxury tailgate on campus. Order what you want.
Moscona inviting you to join us for Monday's AFR, presented by Relief Windows. We'll recap Saints Raiders, and it's LSU Bama week. We'll start to take a look at the Tigers and the Tide. Cole Kubelik will join us 3 to 6. 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is Hanny Time with Charles Hannegriff on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
I'll throw a little love Jeremy Hill's way. The Lakers finally won a game last night.
What's our vector, Victor?
Darvin Ham said they needed to prove something to themselves, not to the world, not to the media. Had to prove it to ourselves. They have proven it. They're 1-5. So no proof needed there. Just 1-5. Did I mention I felt sorry for the Panthers for like a half a second yesterday? Extra point to win the game in overtime. You hit the long pass. Didn't work out. Falcons take the lead in the division with a game-winning field goal in overtime. I would have bet everything in my pocket that the Falcons would not be in first place past, maybe a 1-0 start if they had gotten off to that the entire season. Thought that the Falcons would be one of the worst 5 teams in football. This is why the NFL is so much more difficult, in my opinion, to handicap than college football, especially before the season. Before the season, worst teams in football, okay, in my opinion. All right, you're going to have, in some order, Seahawks, okay? It looked like the Seahawks were tanking. If you go into a season with Drew Lock and Geno Smith as your quarterbacks, think about what you thought about Geno Smith 2 months ago, 3 months ago, not what you think about Geno Smith now. I was wrong. Geno looks great. Thought the Seahawks would be one of the worst teams in the NFL. They're in first place. Thought the Falcons would be one of the worst teams in the NFL. Now, it's a lousy division, but they're in first place. Somehow, The Washington Commanders, who also were going to be down near the bottom of the NFL, all 4-4. Even though they lost yesterday, the Jets are 5-3. We had the Jets down at the bottom. What about the Lions? Oh wait, the Lions still stink. Okay, some things just never some things never change. Tua, we're ready to not close the book on Tua as far as his career, but the whole concussion thing led you to believe that, man, maybe this guy's going to miss a lot of time. No, he's back out there throwing for 330 yards again yesterday. And, of course, everybody had, as the remaining undefeated team into the month of November, Philadelphia Eagles, 4 more touchdowns for Jalen Hurts yesterday. You had A.J. Brown yesterday. You were probably pretty happy in the fantasy league. He had a monster day. 49ers continue to own the Rams every game except the one that they really needed in the NFC title game, but they've run them since. We all thought that the Commanders would have a better record than the Packers, right? The Packers at 3-5 last night in Buffalo did manage to cover the number though. That was nice of them. But Buffalo still, even with the one loss, still looks like the best team in football. There was a throw that Josh Allen made last night in the second quarter. I want to say it was almost 60 yards to Diggs. It was like 55 yards, I think. The guy threw the ball somewhere close to 65 yards in the air, and it wasn't like he even. We're not talking about one of these things with a run and start and you just heave it. He just kind of, I don't want to say he flicked it, but he just kind of pushes the ball 65 yards yesterday. Wouldn't want to play those guys. Wouldn't want to play those guys at all. Are you confident if you're a Saints fan? How do you feel? Mario, were you down at Dome yesterday?
Yeah, I was.
Okay, give me a bird's eye here.
It's nice to get a win, obviously, but I don't expect too much consistency. I mean, Baltimore coming in on Monday night. If we're able to win that game, then you got something at 4-5. But right now, I'm not getting too excited, despite the fact it was a great performance.
It was a great performance, and it doesn't mean that everything's fixed. The frustrating thing is, it's not a lack of personnel that the Saints have. If it's a lack of personnel, you just go, man, look, that's just how that goes. Like the Lions don't have enough personnel to be a division champion. The Saints do. And you'll go back and you'll look at these excruciating losses to Cincinnati, which you should have won, and Carolina, my goodness. And you'll say, listen, it's not like you needed to bring in a dominant receiver or a dominant pass rusher. You didn't need to make a trade. You didn't need to upset the entire, you don't have to turn over the entire roster. All you had to do was have a few less penalties and a few less turnovers. Just the stopping of beating yourself would have done 90% of what you need to do to have yourself in first place today. The fact that they is still in the hunt is due only to the fact that they are in this lousy division. I don't know what to think of the Saints if they were to sneak into the playoffs. Are they capable of pulling this kind of performance on? It's not like the NFC is, outside of Philadelphia. Everybody else can be had on the right day. Even Philadelphia can be had on the right day. I'm nervous to be optimistic. It's been a difficult season. But Andy Dalton can do that yesterday. That's he's got that capability. Is he capable of going for 450 yards or throwing 4 touchdown passes in a game at this point? Probably not. But is he capable of that? If the defense plays like that, special teams play like that, minus the kick miss, have that few penalties, that few turnovers, no turnovers, 1+1. Yeah, he's capable of doing that. Send you to the press conference. We'll be back on the other side. See what Brian Kelly's got to say. This is Hanny Time, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
The following is an exclusive presentation of the LSU Sports Radio Network. Welcome in to the Brian Kelly Press Conference, delivered by ASAP, the official mobile ordering partner of LSU Athletics. Download the ASAP app today. Coming up, head coach Brian Kelly discusses the week ahead for LSU Fighting Tiger football. But first, from inside the Capital One LSU Sports Radio Network studios, here are former Tiger Gordy Rush and the voice of your Fighting Tigers, Chris Blair.
Well, happy Halloween, and once again, happy game week as LSU football gets ready for a pivotal matchup coming up this Saturday. It'll be Alabama coming to town. We get you ready for the Brian Kelly press conference coming up at high noon. We'll head to the Lawton Room, and the Tiger head coach will recap what the guys did last week in the off week, and more importantly, what they're planning on this week, getting ready for Nick Saban and the Crimson Tide. Gordy Rush, first off, hope you had a great week off and made the most of it to get ready for, who would have thunk it 3 months ago? Mm-hmm. One of the biggest games in the country, certainly one of the biggest games in the SEC, and the biggest game in the SEC West. It'll be Alabama, LSU on a Saturday night in Tiger Stadium in Death Valley. It's going to be electric. This whole week's going to be electric.
It's going to be a lot of fun, Chris. Yeah, LSU Alabama at night, and you're right. About a month ago, was Coach Kelly was trying to find his way with this team, and they were trying to find get comfortable with the new coaching staff. I don't think any of us would have guessed that this game would be played for basically the driver's seat in the SEC Western Division.
I know we want to talk about the matchup that's coming up. I'm sure Coach Kelly, having the week off, also going to do the same, but we would be remiss if we didn't go back and at least talk about the solid victory last time out. LSU defeating Ole Miss in really a dominant performance. Really, I think 3/4 of that football game, certainly in the second half. 45-20, they hand the Rebels their first loss on the season. Your biggest takeaways from that game what will be 2 Saturdays?
I think, number one, a continuation of this new identity on offense, establishing the quarterback run, the quarterback design run, and forcing defenses to back up. And at that point, if LSU basically becomes their ability to identify at the line of scrimmage what the defense is doing. If they allocate more people to the run, hey, we're going to throw the ball outside to the wide receivers, get them the ball quickly in space, and let them make plays happen. And it's really, really hard to defend. That's 2 weeks in a row against Florida and Ole Miss that LSU was successful with that. Secondly, I think defensively they continue to bring pressure. The emergence of Harold Perkins is really a difference maker out there, and I thought that the team played a complete second half. There were no busts, no big plays, and that was really nice to see. And then finally, just how dominant LSU was in the fourth quarter, physicality-wise, conditioning-wise. Coach Kelly's been saying that this team is trained that way, that's how hard they practice, how hard they condition, and they basically made Ole Miss tap out in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the 3 comebacks in conference that have resulted in LSU wins. Obviously, Mississippi State, dominant second half, pulled away from the Bulldogs on the road, down 17-0 to Auburn. Again, a shutout in the second half defensively, and the offense got enough points to get a win there, and then just pulled away from Ole Miss. Again, another shutout. 59-3. LSU outscored their opponents in the second half in those 3 games, including 2 shutouts. You mentioned the conditioning. I had a chance to talk to a couple of former Tiger players last week and over the weekend, and I asked them about, can you see what I see from up top, which is visibly it looks like LSU in the fourth quarter has another quarter or 2 left in them based on how they're still attacking, based on how they're ready to go, getting lined up, and really firing off the football.
Absolutely. And this offensive line, which, look, 2 freshmen left tackle, rather tackles, I should say, offensive tackles. You have a center that is starting his first year of collegiate football. You've got people that have been shifted all over the place, and for them to play in unison and run the football with so much efficiency in the fourth quarter of these football games, it's well-coached football team that these players have bought in to the strength and conditioning program. And that, to me, that's made all the difference.
Real quick before we go to our first break and really start looking at the Alabama-LSU matchup, I want to talk about the progression of Jaden Daniels. Two things stood out to me all season going back to preseason camp, Gordy, and that was when asked about it, Coach Kelly would say two good characteristics. He takes coaching very well in practice and on the sideline during games. He's mentioned that many, many times. Also talks about his ability to put the last play behind him, good or bad, and focus on the next play. When you look at the progression truly over the last 4 games, and I'll throw Tennessee in there as well, even though LSU struggled against the Volunteers, you look at his progression. Following the Florida win, the big question everybody had was, okay, was that a one-off? Can he take it to the next level? Can he build on that? And I think we saw that again. I mean, his last 2 game performances have been as good as anybody in the country.
No, absolutely. I think that we saw early on that he liked to play with a little bit of tempo, and he was streaky. When he got into a rhythm, even going back to the Florida State game, he was really, really good. And I think the next thing I would say about him, I think he has a firm understanding now offensively what they want to do, and we don't see the indecision that maybe we saw in the first quarter of some of the earlier SEC games, especially with the play action of the RPO game. He's got a firm understanding of what he's looking for. He gets out there and he executes. He's playing with a lot of confidence right now.
All right, we've got much more coming up, leading you up to 12 noon. Coach Brian Kelly from the Lawton Room at Tiger Stadium as we get back to game week, LSU and Alabama coming up this Saturday. The Brian Kelly press conference is always delivered by ASAP, so make sure you download the ASAP app. Get all of your game day needs delivered right to your door. ASAP, the official mobile ordering partner of LSU Athletics. We'll take a break. When we come back, on the flip side, take a look what Gordy thinks about the matchup Alabama and LSU coming up.
Albertsons is making shopping and saving easier than ever. Check out Albertsons For You in our mobile app, where you can shop for groceries and save weekly with digital coupons all in one place. With Albertsons For You, you can earn rewards points every time you shop and redeem them for free groceries. Brand new Albertsons For You members receive $5 off their next $25 purchase just for signing up. Download the Albertsons app or go to albertsons.com to sign up. Albertsons, fresh food, local flavors.
Support your LSU Tigers with Hancock Whitney, the official bank of LSU Athletics. From game day to the offseason, Hancock Whitney LSU credit and debit cards are a big win for any Tiger fan. Want to get your paws on these cards? Well, apply online or visit HancockWhitney.com/LSU. Hancock Whitney Bank, member FDIC. All accounts subject to credit approval. Terms and conditions may apply.
If you're in office equipment sales or a printer technician having trouble finding work due to product delivery issues, call Scott Bailey Enterprises. They have equipment in stock now, and they're able to service and deliver. Call Scott Bailey.
753-COPY or visit us on the web at svecopy.com.
Jay Dakota here for Calandro's Supermarket. Football season is upon us. Tailgate season is upon us. I'm ready to head to either location of Calandro's Supermarket to pick up all of my supplies. That includes the Calandro's Italian sausage for some great sausage and peppers at the tailgate party, some local craft beer to bring out there on campus, and a lot of other good treats for your tailgate needs. They've got it all at either location of Calandro's Supermarket.
Got an appetite for football? NFL Sundays are back, and you can catch games all day at Twin Peaks. Grab a 29-degree draft and check out our scratch menu if you're hungry. Twin Peaks, eats, drinks, scenic views. Coach Kelly is just moments away from previewing the week for the Fighting Tigers. This is the Brian Kelly Press Conference, delivered by ASAP, the official mobile ordering partner of LSU Athletics. Once again, here are Gordy and Chris.
Number 6, Alabama in both polls. LSU number 15 this week in the AP, number 17 in the USA Today Coaches Poll. 6 o'clock on a Saturday night in Death Valley this coming Saturday. The Crimson Tide 7-1, 4-1. LSU 6-2, also 4-1. Bama with a 2-year winning streak. LSU's last win, of course, coming back in 2019, 46-41. Pretty good game last year in Tuscaloosa. Surprisingly, 20-14, Alabama got the win a season ago. And before we start breaking down this matchup, Gordy, over the next couple of minutes, I did forget to mention that just before we went on the air, it was announced by the SEC that LSU and Arkansas will get together in Fayetteville at 11 a.m. the thing we don't know yet is where it will be televised. CBS and ESPN will have to sort that out. So we'll see what happens this weekend, obviously with LSU and Alabama, but also Georgia and Tennessee, because your theory, I believe, is that may indicate which network takes which game the following Saturday.
Yeah, the other game on a 6-day hold is Missouri-Tennessee. I believe if Tennessee beats Georgia, then CBS will probably opt for that football game instead of LSU-Arkansas. Missouri, well, coming off of a nice win on the road against South Carolina, at least back to 500.
All right, so I was reading an article earlier this morning by Christopher Walsh, who writes for Bama Central, and he was comparing 2021 Alabama to 2022 Alabama. Now, when you look at the statistics, and we can pick out a few, rushing, they're doing a little better per carry this season, receiving about even, efficiency a little off, passing efficiency, all-purpose yards, they're up from last year. But when you talk to people that follow SEC football, and I'm one of those that believe this, just watching 3 of Alabama's games this year, that maybe it's not the elite Alabama. Now, Alabama, let's understand what I'm saying here. Alabama is elite among college football, but among Alabama teams, a lot of people feel like this isn't elite. When you see this statistical comparison, but then watch them, what's the eye test tell you about this year's team?
You know, to me, this team doesn't have the continuity that a whole lot of Alabama teams have. You have some new faces in the system, and I know that Nick Saban said behind the last year before this season that last year was a building season, was kind of a reboot for him. But when you look at the same problems I think you see around college football, this is not one of the elite versions of Nick Saban's Alabama team. When there are too many close games, the 20-19 game against Texas was very much a surprise. They didn't run away with that football game. Texas A&M had a play and a chance to beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa, and even this game against Mississippi State 2 weeks ago, they win 30-6. It was lopsided early. Mike Leach was gambling a couple times, didn't go for a field goal, went from his own 30-yard line. It was 21-0. And Alabama really didn't have to do much offensively. Only had 290 yards total offense, 29 yards rushing. So this hasn't been a dominating Alabama team on both sides of the ball. Offensively, they've been, statistically in the games that don't count, they've been really, really good, and they scored a lot of points, obviously, against Tennessee. Defensively, I just haven't seen that elite Saban defense. This is a very good football team, no doubt about it, but not the elite of the Saban Alabama-era teams.
Well, this is a couple of stats that was left out of that article that I mentioned to you when you got here earlier this morning that kind of talks about that continuity, to your point. Alabama, -3 turnover margin, near the bottom, 11th, in fact, in the SEC. This may surprise a lot of fans across the conference, but they also are the 12th most penalized team in SEC play here in 2022. And third down conversions, about 46%. LSU actually ahead of that at just under 50% third down conversions. But what does stand out is when you mention what kind of shocked me about the Mississippi State game was the inability or the lack of feeling the need to run the ball, because their big chunk plays come on the ground. They got 2 really good running backs that have to be the focus. And even though they don't have the over-the-top receiver, at least early this year, I mean, let's face it, they got talent, and they're starting to get experience and develop a little bit. But it's, as you say, an offense that still can hurt you in a lot of ways.
A lot of explosive plays, and that's part of it, Chris. They've got 2 running backs that have both gone over 75 yards on their biggest plays of the year. One's averaging 7 yards, the other one's averaging 6 yards per carry. That's impressive. They're going to have great skilled wide receivers. It's just the continuity, being able to sustain drive after drive after drive. Now, they got into a shootout with Tennessee, and we all know how good of a football Tennessee is. So I'm not downplaying that this is a very good Alabama football team. It's just we've seen so many come through here, and like everybody else in this new age of college football with the transfer portal and everything else going on, I think struggling to get the continuity that we're familiar with the last couple of years.
Well, and we also have yet to mention Bryce Young, who happens to be the reigning Heisman Trophy winner, first quarterback in Alabama history to do so. And there haven't been a lot of teams, to your point, against Tennessee that have been able to score with them. Again, they came up short on a last-second field goal that Tennessee was able to hit, but But Bryce Young had some really big flashes and great play in that second half to keep up with Hendon Hooker and the Volunteers.
Oh, no, absolutely. Look, they're explosive on offense when Young is clicking. And I think the key is going to be for LSU on the defensive side of the football. Can they play 4 quarters of complete football like they did in the second half against Ole Miss? This defense that has been very good most of the time has given up big plays like Richardson, the quarterback for Florida that broke off the big play. The Tennessee, those big strike plays against Tennessee. Even Ole Miss had a couple of early hits. Can you clean some of that up and make Alabama continuously drive the length of the football field on you?
Coming off the Ole Miss victory, a lot of talk was, deservedly so, for Harold Perkins Jr., who just was dynamite. And there were times, I think 37 plays, he was on the field in the game. And B.J. Ojulari, when they moved Perkins as the edge rusher, they took Ojulari off.
Right.
Which, again, Coach Kelly said in the previous press conference, that's a hard decision to make, to take number 18 out, as good as Harold Perkins Jr. is. You remember, I believe it was Mississippi State, correct me if I'm wrong, where they moved B.J. inside and brought Harold to the outside. Obviously, that wasn't the game plan against Ole Miss, but I got to believe, and maybe someone will ask Coach today, 2 questions. One, is this a game where Harold Perkins' skill set will show up because he's so good side-to-side runs and really has great vision on the field? And also, how do you keep B.J. Ojulari and Harold Perkins on the field at the same time?
Yeah, I think one way that you do so is when you use Harold Perkins as a spy, and they did that 2 games ago against Florida. For Richardson, Perkins played a lot in the fourth quarter as a spy position. You're going to have to spy Young some. Then he moves inside to one of the inside linebacker positions, and Ojulari comes off the edge. But look, you've had an extra week to think about that. Obviously, Alabama is scheming and expecting him to be on the football field. So it's going to be fun to see what Matt House cooks up for Bryce Young and this Alabama offense.
Let's talk about Jaden Daniels and this LSU offense. Again, coming off 2 great performances where I want to mention Josh Williams. Had a great couple of games getting those yards you needed when you needed to run the football. Jaden Daniels, again, 11 touchdowns, running or producing 11 touchdowns against 6, which was incredible in one game. Against this Alabama defense, do you see something that you have to exploit? I mean, again, I could be wrong here, but Coach Saban, as much as he has evolved over the years, still wants to stop the run defensively.
Well, they're very good up front. They're always had great size up front with that front 7, and this is the same with this football team. Look, I think the times that Nick Saban's teams have struggled against SEC offenses, those that ran with tempo and limited the amount of packages that he could run and the creativity that he can do, I think that remains the same. And for me, will LSU be able to identify correctly? That's part of what we've talked about and what Daniels has been done. And will they be able to run the football with success when LSU has the numbers? Alabama has 6 inside the tackle box. They've been able to run on Florida and run on Auburn. Will this offensive line be able to keep that success going?
All right, this is something I've been thinking about over the weekend, and as we wait, Coach Kelly will be coming up to the podium at the Lawton Room here in the next couple of minutes. We talked coming into this season about how many new pieces and how many new names. Obviously, there are true freshmen like Harold Perkins and the offensive tackles that we've talked about who are still developing as, handling the college game. A ton of transfers from different conferences, different schools, some within the conference. But when you talk about Alabama and LSU 2022, first of all, I don't think a lot of people thought this game would have the cachet it's going to have. Secondly, how much of the players and coaches, it's just another game. And I know for us who cover it and those who are fans, it's not just another game. Don't get me wrong. But from their standpoint, it's just another game. I mean, I know they'll understand the recent history between these two, but I don't know that it's going to affect them as much as maybe a player that's been here 4 or 5 seasons that has struggled against Alabama.
Yeah, I'm with you. They don't have the stories. And, you talk about a player that was redshirted or was their freshman year. So you've got 2, 3, 4 years of stories, and you've lived through a couple of these games. Other than the people really that played last year, do you remember how close and how physical that football game is? And I think that's good for LSU because of the experience. You went into Tuscaloosa, and for the players players that played that you're really competitive. But you're exactly right. It's not the same that it was 20 years ago. And you had so many people that stayed through that program and knew about all these rivalries. So many people coming from so many different places. They just know it's the next game on the schedule.
Now, you mentioned what we'll all be watching as how LSU tries to defend against Bryce Young. Again, it's a little different than, say, other great quarterbacks that LSU has faced this season because they have such an explosive run game.
Yes.
The offensive line for Alabama, and what you've seen this season, again, the numbers bear it out. Their running backs are having a great season. But is it the type that can come in here and just literally dominate the line of scrimmage? I've seen them lose some battles this year.
I don't think so. I think where they get very good offensive line, they always recruit well there. Just not as dominant, again, as we've seen in the past. And Alabama has taken advantage of so many explosive plays, right? And a lot of that, some of the guys that they have. And not to knock this offensive line, it's just, again, not one of the top 5 in the Saban era.
We talked about possibly a spy on Bryce Young. A lot of teams try that. But just from a X's and O's standpoint, how do you try to defend him? What is the best way to limit the damage he can do? Because he's a phenomenal player. He's going to make his plays. But how do you keep him from dominating a game?
Well, I go back to you and I talked about in the broadcast about Ashford at Auburn, and certainly, Ashford was an unbelievable athlete, and certainly not the quarterback that Young is, but similar in the sense that once he got outside of the pocket, he was able to make things happen. I think with Young, you've got to force him to beat you from the pocket. You want to cage rush him, you want to keep him kind of bottled up, and you certainly don't want to improvise on you.
We'll see you Saturday. Here's Coach Kelly.
I thought this was a lively bunch. Oh, those are the costumes, huh? Well, it's a big day, as you know. It's Nick Saban's birthday, so I want to wish him a happy birthday to start this off, and maybe that'll soften things up a little bit. But you can always start a press conference by throwing a little happy birthday wish out to your opposing coach. Start with, our guys obviously had some active recovery over the last couple of days. We'll be back out on the field today, getting our guys moving around and preparing for, Alabama. And, certainly what's to say about Alabama other than consistency, excellence, arguably the greatest head coach in college football history, and Nick Saban. I have a great deal of respect for Nick and what he's accomplished and what he's done for college football. And great players. It starts with, Bryce Young. I mean, the Heisman Trophy winner is a playmaker. When it comes to making plays on the field, you just put on the film and you watch him. It's pretty amazing, some of the plays that he makes. And he's a quarterback. He's a quarterback that is talented. He's not making it up, but he is improvising and making plays, and he's elite. That's all I can say. It's pretty terrific player. And he's got a great running back in Jahmyr Gibbs, who I got to see firsthand at Georgia Tech, but he is surrounded with, certainly a very good offensive line and talented players. So, a very explosive offense, and it's led by, obviously one of the great players in college football. On defense, you start with Anderson, who's, an elite defensive player, elite in terms of not only his ability to rush the passer, but what they ask him to do. He's an unselfish player. He plays a 4 technique. He plays a 5. He stands up. He does a little bit of everything. Does a lot of different jobs. That's why he's going to be a great NFL player as well. But on the other side, Turner playing into the boundary is an outstanding football player. So you can't just say, hey, we're going to fan and, we're going to slide to one side. You've got problems on both sides, when you talk about both of these ends. Massive inside, Oates and Dale, and they roll so many guys at you, Smith and Young. I mean, it's deep and talented inside. The two inside backers, outstanding players. And again, I think you talk about in their entirety, the defensive structure is sound and fundamental, and they just do a really good job of coaching. So this is a well-coached football team with elite talent that knows how to win and has played at this level consistently for year in and year out. So what do we have to do? The first thing we need to do is just understand that, you have to take this game and think about how you got here. And we've done it by our preparation. We've prepared well. We have focused on, playing our best when our best is needed. We can't be distracted by, this is a big game or this is Alabama. That's not going to help us in this situation. What's going to help us is playing our best when our best is needed. And our best players are going to have to play well. We're going to have to play consistently for 4 quarters. We must get off to a good start because we've shown that we're going to play well in the second half, but we have to play well for 4 quarters. And we have to play consistently, one play at a time. And all the basic tenets of a game like this is that's why you come to LSU. It's not pressure. It's a privilege to play in games like this. Certainly why I came to LSU, to want to play in games like this. But, all of the noise, all of the other things are just distractions. This is about preparation. This is about focusing on our process this week and preparing to, play, our very best and adding another layer to what we're doing. And being more intentional in our practice, and then when it's time to flip the switch to performance, play more consistently when it's time to play. So with that, we'll open it up to questions.
Hi, Coach, right here. What was your reaction this weekend to jumping 3 spots in the AP poll?
Where are we? I'm sorry. I didn't even know. And I'm not just bringing that up. I had no idea that we jumped up because it's really not anything that changes what we do and how we do it, right? I mean, it's kind of what I just talked about is the most important thing really is what we do on the practice field today and how we prepare. If it generates, more buzz in terms of getting into the stadium and more fans, I'm all for it. Jump us up as high as you can. But it's really about our preparation that focuses my attention.
I guess when you look back on those 2 postseason matchups with Nick Saban, I mean, do you look back at kind of lessons you've learned from those or things you wish you could have done differently, or was it just as simple as Alabama had better teams?
They were extremely talented teams. The 13 team was as physical as a football team that I've ever played against and have not played a team as physical. And then if you look at the perimeter skill that they had, I think that was 19, it was amazing. So, 2 different teams, but, just fabulous players on both sides of the ball.
Hey, Brian, can you give us an update on the plan for guys like Garrett Dellinger and Major Burns this week, which their plan will be getting toward Saturday?
Yeah. So Major Burns is cleared to participate, so he'll be out at practice today. So he, as you can imagine, will be in our game plan, and we expect him to play and be an important part of what we do. Garrett Dellinger is day-to-day. He had a good weekend. He was here this weekend. As you can imagine, that's a little bit different because he's got to be able to take a load on that knee. And, when you're coming back from a knee injury, it's easier to obviously not have to worry about running and cutting, but you've got to be able to take the load. And that's what we're working on right now. We think we're going to get him there, but it's still a process because now we're going to add practice onto it. And so we got to see how he responds each day after practice. We had people leaning on him individually over the weekend. Now we're going to be leaning on him for a full practice, and we'll see how it goes. But he's making good progress. It'll be a soft cast. It's certainly the knee that's more the concern than it is the hand.
Hey, Coach. How do you plan to use the linebackers in this game? We saw a little bit of like Perkins and Ojulari in the last game, and you've got a pro-style offense, and Gibbs is a unique challenge. I'm just curious as to what the roles will be for your linebackers.
Well, I think it's important that, the best players play, and I think we've seen consistently who those players are. Micah Baskerville's been playing, really good football for us. Obviously we want to get Ojulari on the field and Perkins. Those guys are, making plays and have had, for us, high production. So not that Greg has not, and certainly has done a really nice job for us as well, but those are your high production guys, and so when you're playing a team like Alabama, if you know what you're doing at all, you better get your best players on the field.
Coach, no matter who you're playing, it's always a talking point. We need to get pressure in the quarterback's face and make him uncomfortable and whatnot. But with this guy, it looks like the more he's allowed to play street ball and run around, that's when bad things happen for the defense. So how important is it to prevent those kind of things from happening?
Yeah, I think it's, making sure that you don't give up big plays. You got to minimize those, staying in coverage. If he scrambles for a few yards here and there, that's going to happen within the realm of the structure of the offense or defense. But it's coming out of coverage. It's losing your eyes and not staying disciplined. If you've got a man, you've got to be able to lock on it. And then, we've got to be able to tackle him when we get our opportunities. But you're absolutely right. I mean, he breaks down your defense when he scrambles, and he's so intuitive and can make those plays happen. I think what we're concerned more is turning a smaller play into larger plays.
Brian, now that you're facing Alabama day-to-day on a recruiting battles and that kind of thing, what are sort of the priorities in terms of positions and also maybe geographical areas for you in this program as y'all try to flip the balance of power in this rivalry?
Wow, there's a lot there. I don't know where to start. Look, I think it starts with pulling your base, and I think our base, extends all the way up to the border, right, north of Baton Rouge. And so I think there's been a heightened focus on making sure that in the state of Louisiana, we're not just, we're not myopic in a sense that we're just in one geographical area. It's got to really focus on the entire state. So I think it starts there. I think identification of 25s and 26s and making sure that we know all the players in this state and have done a really good job of identifying everybody in the state of Louisiana. So, look, this adage of locking down the borders it's like being a lockdown corner, There are no lockdown corners, okay? There are good corners, and there are corners that are elite. We can be elite in the state of Louisiana, and that's what we need to do. I think you start there. And then, look, it's about filling the needs that we have currently in our program. We're not there yet. Unfortunately, we're probably going to have to dip back into the transfer portal a little bit. We have some really good young players, and we're not going to forsake them. That's where we want to build this program. This program will be built on freshmen, but there are a couple of positions that still have, holes in them that need to be supplanted with some transfers. But we're much better than we were last year. We'll get better this year, and then hopefully in another year. This is just about player development and bringing in freshmen. That's stage 2 in terms of getting to where we need to be to hopefully get to that final narrative of upstaging Alabama. But we're certainly not there yet.
Right in the middle. Just you and Nick, two elite coaches, right? How much do you savor the moments of going against fellow elite coaches? And you talk about the preparation. I'm curious, as a coach, do you all feel an added sense to have better preparation, or is that counterintuitive in big games where you've talked about before, maybe doing less can be just as important?
Well, I think it's all about what your players can execute on Saturdays, right? I mean, we can be the smartest guys in the room, but that doesn't really matter if they can't go out and execute it. So I think we're at that point, both teams are, as we get into, week 9 here, that it's about what your players, their strengths and weaknesses are, knowing your team and knowing what your team can execute at a higher level. So I think the good coaches now have kind of settled into, here's what we do. Let's go do it well, and you got to go stop it. So I think we're both at that level of, we're going to do the things that we do. Yeah, there might be a wrinkle here or there because of self-scouting, and we might have had a tendency here or there, and they may have had a tendency, and we're going to try to break a couple of those, and they're going to try to break a couple of theirs. But I think by and large, I think we know our strengths and weaknesses, and now it's about putting your kids in a good position where they can play fast and free and physical and be the best version of themselves going into November.
In front here, Brett Martell with AP. Two pretty simple ones. One, just Alabama versus LSU historically. From afar, what were your impressions of the significance of this matchup? And second, not every school gets to have their highest profile games in November. Is that a fortunate thing that you're glad that's happening at this point in the season?
Yeah, historical significance is one where, there is a clear rivalry between the programs that is real, that you can feel, and that's long-standing. It goes way back to, just these two teams being original teams in the conference going against each other. So, but, I've come to know that, a lot of these games that we play in the SEC have some interesting side notes along the way. And look, this one becomes even more because of the success that both programs have had. These are two teams that have won national championships within the last few years. So, they bring on a lot of national notoriety as well. Anytime you play a game like this that's conference, within your conference, they have to have significance, historically. But in real time, both teams are fighting for, the SEC West. So the games matter when both teams are in a position for this game to have the kind of scrutiny that it does today. So, I think that this is what you're looking for if you're an Alabama fan or an LSU fan. Yeah, I mean, again, I would say that, when you're looking at your schedule in the SEC, when you have Alabama on your schedule in November, this could be one of those where you check the box if you're not playing well. Or it could have huge significance. And I think in this instance, it certainly has much more significance than maybe it did last year, where they weren't in the race. So, I think you always want Alabama in November because both teams traditionally have been pretty good.
Hey, Coach, just right here. So with Mason Taylor and Josh Williams, how important are those guys, especially as blockers this week when you're going up against someone like Will Anderson?
Well, I think you have to employ, schemes that help out the tackles. As I mentioned before, whether it's a tight end or a running back, or you're sliding your protection there. But as I mentioned, they're pretty good on both sides. So the ball's got to come out quickly. We've got to recognize that. We're not going to be able to sit back there in the pocket and just kind of, go through 5 progressions. I mean, the ball's got to come out quickly. We're going to have to move the pocket. We're going to have to, protect. We're going to have to max protect. So we're going to have to do a little bit of all those things. But certainly additional players other than the offensive linemen will be involved in protection, no doubt.
Yeah, Ron, right here, Ron Higgins, Tiger Details. Yeah. Have you seen, I guess, in the last couple of games, especially on film, it's noticeable Jaden Daniels' confidence has increased in his receivers, like to make a play. So this is Dre Jenkins' touchdown. Like, I can do this and let him make a play. Can you notice it a lot on film?
Yeah, you can see it in practice. I think there's much more of an understanding of where they're going to be and what they're doing, and he doesn't need to look them down, right? There was a lot of visual hookups, if you will, where he was waiting for that receiver. He can get the ball out of his hands now without the receiver being out of his break, and so that just takes time, and we just didn't have that time earlier in the season, and that's starting to build that kind of relationship that wasn't available to us earlier in the year.
Hey, Coach, right here. Just kind of building on the run game a little bit. You guys seem to have really taken some great strides there the last two games, second and third in manageable situations. Just how beneficial has that been for the offense, and in particular, Josh Williams' role in that, and him being kind of really assertive the last couple weeks in that respect?
Yeah, I think it's like anything else. You need to find some balance within your offensive structure. If you're so one-dimensional that you have to throw the ball on those second and third down situations, then the defense has the advantage in those kinds of situations. And I think, they got offensive staff, and I think Mike's done a really good job of making sure that through play calling, there is a balance where you have to defend the run and you have to defend the pass. And, that's been the philosophy from day one, is that, we better be equally as good at both, depending on what we get, and I think we've done a pretty good job there.
Hey, Coach, up top. I think you mentioned that you resourced Nick before you took the job, maybe called him about this LSU job. What was that phone call like, and what did he tell you about?
It was much more about the SEC. It was much more of a general, conversation. He didn't give up any secrets about Etouffee or Louisiana or LSU. If he did, I would have bought that house on Highland that he lived in. But no, there was nothing that was that specific. But it had just been a conversation about the SEC in particular.
Hey, Coach, you mentioned last week that in order for the defense to start fast and not allow those early touchdowns, it's more mentally than it is physically. So what is your preparation for that defense to get prepared mentally?
So that's the $1 million question, right? I mean, you got the $1 million question today. We're trying to figure that out, right? Do we, we all look at things that I need to do in terms of preparation for our players. What I started doing about 3 weeks ago is I moved up some articulation or some contact, 11-on-11 contact from when it would be 45 minutes into practice. I moved it up into the first 20 minutes of practice to kind of heighten that and get our guys ready immediately when they come out to practice that, hey, we need to get after it. We need to be ready right away. To build that in. Now, that's only been a couple of weeks, so we're trying to build that in. We're trying to look at some quizzes before, on Saturday morning and making sure that we're sharp mentally. So we're looking at all those things to make sure. And sometimes it's just you got to go make a play. Let's make that catch. Let's make that play and get off to a good start.
Hey, Coach, down here. You come off a big win, then you go to the bye week, and then you have a huge game now. How do you think the team has done of keeping the intensity level through the bye week?
I thought they were very intentional this week. Today will be a big day for us, right? You want to make sure that, when you take a few days, you want them to stay sharp mentally and physically. It can't be just, hey, I'm going to roll up on the couch and just watch TV for 2 days. That's not going to work, and they know that. So coming back today and having a really good day will be important to us. But I thought that the week was really good. I thought that they were focused, that the intentionality in terms of what they needed to do last week was work on some of the mistakes that had been made over the last couple of weeks. We cleaned those things up. We got a bit of a preview of Alabama in terms of their structure, and then we'll dive in a little bit deeper on Alabama today. So far so good, but I think today's a big day for us.
Coach, a game like this that gets so much media attention and there's going to be so many people seeing your player interviews and whatnot, I was just curious what you knew about Tommy Karam in terms of, training the players for these interviews and getting them ready for media, and how important is that when they represent the school on those big platforms?
Yeah, I think Tommy's done traditionally a great job. But I think it's also about our players understanding on a day-to-day basis, what our process is and what we're doing. And, we remind them every day about staying in the present. The most important thing is staying in the present. If they talk about what they're doing today and what their focus is today, it usually puts them in a good position. It's when they start thinking about last year's game or they start thinking about next week's game against Arkansas where they kind of get off track. But, staying in the present, talking about their teammates instead of themselves, and really going day to day has been our advice to our guys, and it's worked really well. I think they've represented LSU football very well.
Jaden's obviously had just a crazy year, in general, Arizona to here and whatnot. I mean, just how have you seen him personally kind of handle all these ups and downs this past year?
Well, I think it starts with he enjoys being here. I think he's in the right space mentally, first and foremost, because he really enjoys being here. I think he's been in a learning process. He's learned a lot of football, and that growth process is really starting to benefit itself, and we're starting to see that come to fruition on the field. So I think more than anything else is he's in a good space, and because of that, you're seeing growth and you're seeing production happen at the same time. And I think anytime as a coach, as a teacher, as an educator, when you see that with a player, you feel pretty good about where you're at.
It's early in the overall process, but as you said, it is week 9. Do you feel like your team is ready for this opponent at this time?
Well, we have no choice unless Alabama wants to forfeit. I don't think that's in Nick's plans. Yeah, I mean, look, I think that this team, understands the challenges, but welcomes them at the same time. It fights. This group fights and welcomes it. And I think more than anything else, they're fighting for something and not fighting against something. And that's a big change from where they were. And so I think they're excited about it. And they're excited about the challenge. They know it's a challenge, but just sensing them last week, they're excited about the challenge.
Brian, just any updates on Jack Besh and John Emery heading into this week?
Both positive. They'll both practice today. I'm certain Jack will practice. I didn't get a report from our training room on Emery, but I did get a report before I got in here on Jack, and he is much improved, and he was cleared to get out on the practice field today. Thank you.
Head coach Brian Kelly with the Brian Kelly press conference as LSU gets ready to take on Alabama this coming Saturday night in Death Valley, kickoff just after 6 o'clock. Loved it. I don't know about you, but love the fact that Coach Kelly talked about the historical importance of this game, but while at the same time putting it in its perspective to the 2022 season. It's the next team on the schedule. It's a great team next on the schedule. LSU's got to go out and perform its best. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, some news and notes, and then we'll send you on your way. It's the Brian Kelly press conference delivered by ASAP.
Together, we are partners, setting a new standard for health. Together, we prove that no matter how battle-tested we are, our spirit remains undefeated. Our Lady of the Lake and LSU are creating transformational change and impacting Louisiana with a new standard for healthcare, research, and education. Together, Our Lady of the Lake and LSU are champions for Louisiana. Together, we roar. Learn more at ololrmc.com/LSU.
Welcome back to our podcast here in the Bayous in Louisiana. We are looking for the exclusive multiplier games from the lottery with Louisiana's very first $20 scratch-off and a top prize of $500,000. Wait a tick. We found it! Hold on. What's that sound? I think I'll get a closer look. Wait! Oh.
Hey, that's the Explorer! He found the multiplier games!
Thank you, everyone.
Try all 5 multiplier games. You could win up to $500,000. Must be at least 21 to purchase.
Picture this. You're trying to hire someone or buy something, and you click on their website, but it takes forever to load and looks, well, horrible. So what do? You probably move on. If you're concerned that just described your website, you should call us. We're GatorWorks.
Attention hunters, fishermen, and lovers of everything outdoors. The Ducks Unlimited Gun Bash and Banquet is back. Hosted by Bowie Outfitters the evening of Friday, November 4th from 5 to 9 p.m. Come out for a 25-gun firearm frenzy raffle with cocktails, beer, wine, and appetizers. There'll be live and silent auctions and in-store discounts. Raffle packages include bonus tickets and tickets for the bonus prize of a $1,000 shopping spree from Bowie Outfitters. It's the Ducks Unlimited Gun Bash and Banquet at Bowie Outfitters, Friday, November 4th. Get your tickets now at dutigers.com.
At Brock, our after-hours clinic is staffed by medical providers skilled in treating a wide range of orthopedic injuries. We're available nights and weekends, 7 days a week as an alternative to the ER. For more information, visit us online at brortho.com.
This is the Brian Kelly Press Conference, delivered by ASAP.
Number 6, Alabama. Number 15, LSU. Saturday night in Death Valley. Kickoff just after 6 o'clock. Coming up this weekend, the Tide 7-1, 4-1. Your Fighting Tigers 6-2 and 4-1. Alabama leads the series, 55 wins, 26 losses, and 5 ties. Again, the Tigers trying to break a 2-game win streak by the Crimson Tide. Coming up later this week on Thursday at 7 o'clock. We get back to the Brian Kelly Show, coming to you live from TJ Ribs. Hope to see you there. If not, tune in all across the LSU Sports Radio Network and on the LSU Sports mobile app, presented by BASF. Coming up on Saturday, LSU Game Day. We'll get things started at 4 o'clock from Tiger One Village, presented by TJ Ribs. And then Doug Morrill, Gordy Rush will join me across the street at legendary Tiger Stadium for all the play-by-play action of Alabama and LSU. Have a great week. Again, have a safe and happy Halloween. We'll see you Saturday at Death Valley. Thanks to Gordy Rush. Thanks to you for listening. Be back here next week for the Brian Kelly Press Conference, delivered by ASAP.
This has been the Brian Kelly Press Conference, delivered by ASAP, the official mobile ordering partner of LSU Athletics. Download the ASAP app today.
Anytime. A daily look at sports from our resident historian. Your sports break during your lunch break. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studios. Here's Charles Sandegriff.
Anytime 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. A lot to get to out of the Brian Kelly press conference, so let's get at it. First of all, LSU Arkansas at 11 o'clock in the morning, if you missed that at the beginning of the top. The other thing that it came out right as we went to the pregame was that Auburn has fired Brian Harsin. That's one thing about live radio, guys, is the ability to have it make you look very, very foolish. I think it was maybe 20 minutes before that. I said, well, they're bringing in a new AD, and this will give him a chance to transition through it. And if he can, get him out and find Harsin a job, and 20 minutes later, he's out in the parking lot. They haven't hired John Cohen officially. Everybody has reported that it will happen at some point very shortly. But John Cohen going in there to be the AD to hire the next football coach, we knew Harsin was going to be out. I just didn't expect it to be today. Because they've gone this far is the only reason. If they had fired him a month ago, I wouldn't have been the least bit surprised. I mean, it's Auburn. But if they stuck with him this long, I sort of figured that they were kind of waiting for him to get a job. I don't know, or hoping he would get a job. I don't know that it does them a whole lot of good for the last month of the season, but we'll see. That's Auburn's problem. Mike, I'm going to give you my candidate right now. It's not Lane Kiffin. It's not Hugh Freeze. It's not Deion Sanders. I think it's Matt Rule. That would be the number one guy that I would think that they would go after. Now, who should they go after? Look, it's Auburn. You never quite know who's calling the shots there. Well, you do, but sometimes there's a conflict. I fully expect Hugh Freeze to be the hot name for this job, and he signed a contract extension with Liberty last week, which couldn't possibly matter less. That's other people's money. I'll tell you this about Freeze. The football is there. That's not really the problem. Hugh Freeze left the conference in, not the best standing in many circles. Let's just say it that way, okay? And a lot of people got to sign off on him getting that job. And I don't know if all of them want to sign off on it. More people than usual have to sign off on that. We'll see. Matt Rule's my pick. Let's see how bad I can. Myra, can we get Matt Rule to he'll take the Georgia Tech job by 1:00 today, so I can look really foolish. Brian Kelly talking about a number of things. First of all, the injury news was good. Major Burns cleared to play. He is going to be in the game plan. Garrett Dellinger, day-to-day, soft cast on the hand. The real problem is the knee, so wouldn't expect him to start, but if he's available to them, that can't possibly hurt. They got questions about John Emery and Jack Besh. Listen, they're fine young men and all that stuff. They are not they have not at any point been major parts of any game plan this year. Emery's the 5th leading rusher on the team. His big game is 45 yards. Besh is the 9th leading receiver. His big game is 43 yards against New Mexico. I'm happy to get updates on these guys. I hope they do well. Quite frankly, they have not been a big part of what LSU's been doing. So I'm happy to get them back if they get back. But if they're not there, you probably won't notice because they have been out for most of the time. Talked about getting off to a good start. We've had a lot of good jokes about this over the years. Why would you not want to get off to a good start? But Kelly's going so far as to changing up his pregame routine, quizzes or whatever. Remember before the game in the Superdome, said, "Hey, we're going to go do a little, not quite, a little bit more than a walkthrough in the stadium that morning, break a sweat, get everybody going." Don't know if they still do that every single game exactly like they were doing the Superdome, if they've changed that thing up a little bit. I can't imagine that LSU doesn't come out ready to play. They may get beat, but I can't imagine that being in that stadium on a Saturday night against Alabama, the SEC West title within your grasp, and you're not ready to go 100% from the beginning. I mean, there's just no way you can be flat for this game. Of course, they came out flat for Ole Miss, and I said the same thing. So maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, but I just can't imagine a night game in Tiger Stadium against Alabama with this much riding on it that you come out flat. Doesn't mean you don't make mistakes. I mean, you may come up overhyped and make a mistake, bust a coverage, have a turnover, whatever. So they know the problem. They're trying to address the problem. It's not one of those things where, hey, do this. It's not like fixing a defense. Like, okay, we got to replace this guy with that guy, and then it's fixed. How you get everybody coming out and everything clicks, I don't know. I think that's really tough for coaches. He talked about the Bryce Young problem. Young's a fantastic football player. His improvisational skills are just one of the things that makes him an issue. We talked about in the podcast a little bit this morning. Are you going to put a spy on him? Yes, sometimes. Are you going to rush him in different ways? Yes, you have to. Are you going to show him different coverages? Yes, you have to, because if you don't, he'll figure out what you're doing and he'll beat you. The Alabama program under Saban has not always had elite quarterbacks. They have won with some very average quarterbacks. This is not the case this year. Young is a better player at this point in his career than Jalen Hurts was when he was at Alabama, and Hurts was the offensive player of the year in the league. He is a better player at this point in his career than Tua Tagovailoa was at Alabama, and Tagovailoa was a top 5 pick in the NFL draft, and he's playing at a higher level than both of them. There have been times this year where Young has picked up Alabama and put them on his back, and if you don't need any more evidence than how important he is and how good he is, go watch the Alabama A&M game. It was a 2-point game. You've seen enough of A&M, you've seen enough of Alabama to know that if Bryce Young plays in that game, it's a 21-point game. I mean, Alabama's going to beat Texas A&M by 3 touchdowns if Bryce Young plays in the game. It's my opinion. He's that much better. He got asked a question about what he thought of this rivalry in watching it from afar, when he was at Notre Dame. And he gave a good answer. He talked about the historical significance of it and the, being original teams in the Southeastern Conference. this is how I would have answered, and I don't have to, I don't have to tone it down a little bit in the hopes of not creating bulletin board material. I would just tell you that this game has produced more talent, more professional talent than any series that I have ever seen in college football over, say, a decade's time. The only one that comes close to it to me is when Florida State and Miami were both in their heyday. That was pretty close. When Oklahoma and Nebraska were in their heyday, they didn't send this amount of players to the league. And right now in college football, other than Ohio State and now Georgia, there's no other two teams that you can put on the field that have more representation in the NFL. So that's what I would say to you there. Talked about protecting Jaden Daniels. That they're going to have to move the pocket some. They're going to have to help those tackles. Will Anderson's a problem. He has not had statistically the type of year that maybe you thought, but part of that is probably because of the attention that is paid to him. He is a fantastic football player. Kelly said that they would do some max protect somewhere. Matt Flynn is cringing, but you got to change it up. Just like you got to change up the coverages on what Young sees, you got to change up the protections. Otherwise, they'll figure out what you're doing. And well, Saban's really good at exploiting your weaknesses. He'll make you go to the left hand. He'll make you drive left if he thinks that you can't do it. So they're going to have to help the offensive line out. They know that for sure. I was interested. I think it would be a great question to ask Brian Kelly in the offseason when he could probably get into a little bit more depth. It's a little bit more relaxed. When he was asked about the phone call with Nick Saban. See, that's a phone call I would have liked to have listened to. These two guys privately getting to tell you what they really think about things. These two guys that have won, combined over 500 games in college football. Nick, give me your honest opinion on the LSU job in football in the Southeastern Conference. I would have been fascinated to hear what Saban would have told him. And not what Saban will tell us that he told him, or not what Kelly will tell us that Nick told him, because I don't expect him to divulge a private conversation. That's not fair. But I think that would have been, I don't know how long the conversation lasted. Might have lasted 5 minutes, might have lasted an hour. I have no idea. But I would have really, really been interested to hear that. It's happened a couple of times in my career where I've either had to ask a question about somewhere that I was going to work, or somebody asked me a question about somewhere that I had worked previously. And they're really, really candid conversations. You feel like you can really tell the story. I would have been fascinated to hear that. Here's the thing with Alabama that is surprising to me, and it's been surprising all year. You don't expect a Nick Saban team to beat themselves. And not that the one game that they lost was them beating themselves as much as, Hendon Hooker and Jalen Hyatt and all those guys, and it was just a magical night at Tennessee. But Alabama helped with the number of penalties and turnovers. I don't expect a Nick Saban team to make those kind of mistakes. We talked at the beginning of the show when we were talking about the Saints win. Why did the Saints win yesterday? Well, they went a long way towards not beating themselves. For once, they didn't turn the ball over, and they had 5 penalties for 27 yards. This is from a team that is at the bottom of the NFL in both of those, at or near the bottom in both of those statistics. You don't expect that Alabama would have gained the fewest turnovers in the SEC, but they have. I expect a Nick Saban defense to be aggressive and attacking, that they take the ball away. This group doesn't, though at least they haven't so far. They put Eli Ricks in the game last week against Mississippi State, and he certainly had a good game, but that's 1 out of 11. They have 6 takeaways in 8 games. That's not something that you expect from a Nick Saban team that is last in the league. And they're -4 overall in the turnover ratio. That's 11th in the league. You don't expect that either. And you certainly don't expect the Nick Saban coach team to lead the league in penalties, but they do. They're 12th in yardage, but they're dead last in overall penalties. Sounds like a bizarro statistic, right? Who's last in the league in penalties? Well, I don't know who is, but it can't be Alabama. Yeah, it is. Who's last in the league in takeaways? I don't know. Can't be Alabama. Yeah, it is. Blame it on whatever you want to blame it on. I don't have a theory that explains everything. Is it a little bit transfers coming in? Maybe. Is it different personnel that just doesn't get it the way he usually does? The shot, I think, that a lot of people will remember in the Tennessee game, because it's been memed to death, is Saban going crazy on the turnover on the punt. Well, yeah, because you just don't expect that Alabama would make that kind of mistake, that they would allow a turnover on a punt on what is a very routine play. Just get out of the way. We're not asking you to cover an All-American receiver or block an All-American defensive end. We're asking you to get out of the way of the bouncing football, and they didn't do that, and it was costly. You don't expect those things from Saban teams. Why were they in a 1-point game with Texas and a 2-point game with Texas A&M, and why did they allow Arkansas? They had on the mat. Whenever you see Alabama up 4 touchdowns, game's over. Nobody ever gets back in the game when they're down 4 touchdowns to Alabama. Arkansas did. They lost, but they did. You don't see the sideline making a clock error like they did at the end of the Tennessee game. Why did Hendon Hooker have time for 2 more throws? Well, because Alabama left them time on the clock. Those are not the mistakes. They have made more uncharacteristic mistakes of that program than they have, really, in my opinion, any year since 2010, which was the last time Saban lost more than 2 games in a year. Does it mean that they'll do it this Saturday? It does not. I wish it did. It might, though. You are what your record says you are. They're still really, really good, but they're making mistakes at a higher rate than they normally do. Take some of your questions in the chat when we come back. This is Hanny Time, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is Hanny Time.
Well, if you're going out tailgating this week, Supreme Rice is the ticket, man. Making a big jambalaya, you're making some gumbo, you're making some stew, you're making some red beans. Make it with Supreme Rice. Support our Louisiana farmers down in Crowley, Louisiana since the 1930s. You know, all of our Supreme Rice grown, milled, and processed down in Crowley and Southwest Louisiana. You're going to stretch your food dollar. If you're having a big tailgate, this is the way to go. Whether it's the brown, the long grain, the medium grain, or the jasmine, Supreme Rice is a perfect complement to your next meal. Easy to get. Stop by pregame on the way. We'll be at Rouse's not far off the LSU campus, Burbank at Lee. Pick up some Supreme Rice on the way to your tailgate. For more information and great recipes, go to supremerice.com.
Professional golfers John Peterson and J.J. Colleen answer all your golf and life questions inside the new Drop Biscuit Studios podcast for the people. Download or subscribe today at dropbiscuit.com.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected. Supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team. And backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
I am Juliette, daughter of Marguerite, granddaughter of Gabriel Piera. I come from a line of strong women. Women who knew struggle and success too. Still, I was scared by my breast cancer diagnosis. But I had Blue Cross coverage, which meant I got care from top doctors. I'm strong like my mother, and her mother before her. The right card, the right care.
Crime has serious consequences, but anyone can make a mistake. If you find yourself in trouble with the law, know that you have rights, and it's okay to demand them. The law offices of O.C. Brown are here to protect you and your rights. Felony or misdemeanor, DUI or drug charge. No matter what crime you're accused of, you still have rights. Let the law offices of O.C. Brown uphold them. Call 225-343-1111. Your law firm for a lifetime.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
This summer, meet Acura's heroes of performance. Only available at the Acura Summer of Performance.
This summer, visit your local Acura dealer for attractive offers on the MDX.
Want more customers? Running Boards Marketing can help you get their attention. Imagine your brand's message on a giant LED billboard truck that can't be skipped and is nearly impossible to ignore. Running Boards Marketing is the leader in effective and affordable advertising on digital mobile billboards, which are 2 times more effective than traditional billboards. With a 97% recall rate, you'll leave a lasting impression with your customers. Visit us online at Running Boards Marketing.
Monday evening edition of Game Time presented by Bet Rivers. We're live at Rouge Creole in Perkins Row, recapping all of the college and NFL action from the weekend on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Congratulations to Stephen Hill of Greenwell Springs. Stephen is our Week 9 winner in the 2022 Twin Peaks College Football Pick'em Contest. He wins a $50 Twin Peaks gift card. Don't forget to make your picks for Week 10 by 5 p.m. on Thursday. Play the 2022 Twin Peaks College Football Pick'em today at 1045ESPN.com.
This is Hanny Time with Charles Hannegriff on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Some questions out of the chat. Ask Hanny, why do you hate Hercules? Okay, here's my deal with nicknames. The best nicknames are organic, okay? Somebody says them one time and everybody jumps on it. If you try to manufacture a nickname, it never works, okay? There's a whole Seinfeld episode about this. You know, I'm going to be T-Bone. No, can't nickname yourself, and you can't sit there. Let's think of a nickname for this guy. It will always stink. Okay, when Irvin Johnson was in the national championship game, well, actually was in the state championship game, he drove to the hole so many times. One of the sports writers, I don't even remember who, says, "Man, that's just magic," and that was it. He was Magic Johnson from that day forward. When Tyrann Mathieu was here, and somebody posted that doggone honey badger video, and the honey badger just takes away, and that was it. He's the honey badger from that day forward. If you try, I'm going to be T-Bone. No, it never works that way. And Hercules definitely does not work. Ask Hanny, do you think Dan Mullen would be a good fit for the Auburn job? No. I can't think of a worse fit. Here's what we know about Mullen. It's got very little to do with football here. Dan Mullen has a reputation as being very, very difficult to get along with. There was a reason Florida didn't interview him the first time. And there was a reason when they changed athletic directors that they moved him the second time. He's just difficult to get along with. What can I tell you? I mean, that's his reputation. And the last thing you want to be at Auburn as a football coach is difficult to get along with, because then you got to win all the time. You got to win all the time pretty much anyway. But there's a few extra people that you have to talk to at Auburn to work and play well with others. No, Dan Mullen to Auburn would be a horrible fit. Ask Hanny, worst state to travel through. I don't know if it's a worst state to travel through. I have never in my life crossed the state of Texas in a car. Not from Orange to El Paso or the other way. I've never done it. Okay, there's this very depressing sign right at the state line. It's when you cross in, it says Orange city limits, and it says El Paso, 857 miles. And I've always been happy that I never had to do that. Okay. So I don't think I'd want, because once you get past San Antonio, I've been told many, many times, there is nothing for, well, the rest of the trip. I once had to drive across the state of Iowa in the rain in a Ford Focus to the College World Series. That was a bad day. And the rest of the series wasn't very good either. Ask Hanny, what would you give Nick Saban if he showed up at your house trick-or-treating? I'd give him directions to another house. Ask Hanny, if LSU wins, hang on, let's see. This just jumped right out of my screen here. If LSU wins out and plays Georgia in the SEC championship game wins, do you think the committee will put LSU and the Vols in the college football playoff? I think a two-loss SEC champion gets into the playoff, yes. What happens with the rest of the teams, I don't know. But if you win the Southeastern Conference, even with 2 losses, I think you get in the playoffs, yes, for sure. Ask Hanny, if you can ask Saban only one question that he has to answer, only one question. Wow. Okay, that's really good. If I could ask Nick Saban one question and he has to answer honestly. Oh, okay. I'll play along. If you could pick, if there were no consequences anywhere else, all right. If contracts weren't a thing, and you could pick between having spent the bulk of your career at Alabama or the bulk of your career at LSU, which one would have picked? No less than Paul Feinbaum said last week, and Feinbaum knows Saban pretty well. He said, I think Saban's always held a torch for LSU, and he'll take it to the grave. If I could ask Saban, if you had it to do all over again, would you go to Alabama, go to the Dolphins and go to Alabama? Would you just stay at LSU? I think I got a decent idea what he would say if he were being honest. That's the best I can. That's the best I can come up with right now. Hunt Hill is straight ahead. Jeremy will be in a good mood because the Lakers finally won one game, but just one game. They're 1-5 now. We'll be back with you tomorrow. For Mario and Taylor, I'm Charles Hannigan saying thank you. Good afternoon. Hanny Time, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is Hanny Time.
Well, there's so many businesses out there that are having problems with staffing. There's so much to it. Interviews, background checks, your payroll expenses. I know that so many business owners would love to have somebody take this off their plate so they can get back to their work. Tiger Labor and Staffing will take care of all your screening, all your training, all your payroll, all your employment expenses, and you can focus towards the things that you need to get done. No more multiple canceled interviews every day. Tiger Labor and Staffing will help make no call, no show a thing of the past. They'll handle not only your interview processing, but your onboarding too. Sometimes that just takes forever. You can control your labor expenses, increase your flexibility. Holidays coming up, you need seasonal employees during peak seasons. They can help you with that as well. Tiger Labor and Staffing, welcoming skilled and unskilled labor. They'll match you with a job that fits and quick turnaround on pay. Get your work done without the worries. Tiger Labor and Staffing. Success begins with the eye of the tiger.
Follow us on Twitter at 1045ESPN to